Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Sjælland in Denmark and revisit a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, but I think it is still fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different New England hazy IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that we have had from them on a few occasions before, and they've always been quite nice actually in this style bracket, but this one is a little bit different, so I have to say I'm quite curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to Greve, which is to the south of Copenhagen a little bit, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Alefarm Brewing. So this particular beer is called Nightweave. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a black double IPA or double black IPA, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the local Osmoskalig assortment through Systembolaget for February of 2022. And the reason that I got this one was, one, because I hadn't had a black double IPA from them in quite a while, but two, the hop bill on this one is very interesting because quite a few of the hops in this one I have not had in a black IPA before. And as I've explained in previous reviews, hops will behave differently depending on what malt base you put them with or what yeast you put them with, or even other things as well. So yeah, this is one that just really kind of caught my interest actually. But yeah, always nice to review the new beers from Alefarm, and always nice to have a black IPA as well. You don't find all that many of these about these days. So yeah, let's crack on with it then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Alefarm Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the channel, and if you have any beer suggestions, do get in touch. So yeah, let's crack on then and do the history section of the video. So on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Alefarm Brewing. So Alefarm Brewing, as I've told you before, is the brainchild of Andreas Skuld Larsen and Kasper Tiedemann, and the company was founded back in 2015. So Andreas had been a home brewer for a while, but he'd also worked for a period of time as a librarian. But Kasper has quite an extensive background in the IT sector, and he's involved in several different companies and organisations, one of which is his own consultancy firm. So originally they based the company on a farm to the north of Copenhagen, hence the name Alefarm, but they soon moved the business to Køge, which is to the southwest of the city. And for a long time they brewed with just a very small 200-litre brew kit, which was actually intended as a pilot transition brew kit. And back in those days they were brewing a lot of different kind of sour beers and stuff like this. It was mainly kind of farmhouse ales, which also played into the whole image of the brewery being called Alefarm. But fast forward a little bit to 2018, they opened a new 20 hectolitre brewery in Greve, which has a canning line, and the beers started to be exported abroad at this stage as well. But at this point, Andreas left the company and went into brewing cider. But they also had Mark Walewski brewing for them for a while, and he used to work for Beavertown in London, but he's now brewing with Mikkeller back in London these days. But I think he stayed with them for about 2 years or something like that, if memory serves me correctly. But these days the brewery is run on a daily basis by Kasper along with his wife Britt, and they're focusing mainly on brewing different kinds of IPAs. But you will see other styles popping out from these guys every so often, but mainly, yeah, New England hazy IPAs, some West Coast IPAs, black IPAs, and you'll get the odd Imperial Stout and things like that from them as well. But they are a very prolific brewery, and as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 380 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. And they always release very regularly over here into Sweden as well. We always get 1 or 2 beers from Alefarm through the local Osmoskalig assortment. every month. But yeah, this I think should be quite a nice one actually. We've had many nice beers from Alefarm in the past. So yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Alefarm for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a little look at the beer itself then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. It actually looks a little bit like bird feathers or something like that, maybe feathers of the raven or something like that. But yeah, lovely artwork on this, I have to say. You can see on the back there is the Alefarm Brewing symbol, and it tells you a little bit about the beer too. So as we said earlier, this one comes in at 8% ABV. It's a black double IPA. Going by what it has in the ingredients list, I think it's going to be a more kind of New Englandy type black IPA. And as I've explained in previous videos, for me there are two different kinds of black IPAs. There are the ones that are more New Englandy. They contain barley, oat and wheat malt, which this one does. And you also have the ones that are a little bit more West Coasty. They tend to be a little bit more kind of sweeter and caramelly and biscuity and things like that, and they contain pretty much mostly barley malt. But the New Englandy ones like this tend to be a little bit more kind of smooth and bready and stuff like this. But yeah, the hop bill in this one is Sabro, Idaho 7, Galaxy and Citra, and I've not had Sabro, Idaho 7 or Galaxy in a black IPA before as far as I can remember. Potentially Galaxy, but the other two, Sabro and Idaho 7, I'm pretty certain that I haven't. But we know all of these hops quite well. They all come in around the 14% alpha acid mark. They're all American besides Galaxy, which is Australian, but Sabro is going to give you a lovely kind of tangerine orangey note with a bit of coconut normally. Idaho 7 will give you a lovely kind of soft tropical kind of apricot-y papaya type flavour. Galaxy is quite a pungent passion fruit, but also kind of mango and pineapple and stuff. And Citra is a lot of juicy mango and quite a lemon limey zesty kind of character normally. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those four hops stand up with the dark malt base in this. So yeah, this should be pretty cool. But it's a 440ml can, this one. I believe I paid 60 Swedish kroner for this, so that's roughly about €6. That translates to about £5.50 sterling, something like that, maybe a little bit less. Somewhere in the region of $7 American. So yeah, that should be about right. So yeah, pretty good. So you can see plain silver top on the can there, which is to be expected. But yeah, the Nightweave 8% black double IPA, Sabro, Idaho 7 Galaxy and Citra. Let's crack this guy open and see how we go. Very, very curious about this. I think this beer was released along with another one in Sweden. This one, I think it was called Carousel or something like that, which was just a regular IPA. But no, the black IPA was the one that I was more curious about, so we went for that this month. Usually I get one, sometimes I get both of the Alefarm beers in fairness, but yeah, this is the one that kind of caught my eye more out of the two. So yeah, let's just pour this a little bit slowly because the head seems to be quite active, but yeah, I think that'll probably do for the moment. Anyway, get a nice little whiff of things going on with this as you open it up. But yeah, anyway, that does look pretty good. So before the head starts to fade away on this one, you can see it's poured with about a finger and a third or a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say very light beige, potentially fawn coloured head. You can see that on the camera. The other camera is beautiful. I comment on that quite a lot. Lovely, lovely camera on this Asus Zenfone. Absolutely in love with it. But yeah, lovely looking head on this beer. Very foamy, as you can see. Lovely small bubbles there with a few pockets of bigger ones too. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful head. One of the best pours I've had in quite a wee while, I have to say. But anyway, in terms of the colour of the beer, I think it's definitely fair to describe this one as being a lovely sort of dark ebony rosewood colour. You can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just going up toward the bottom of the head there. But as you shine the light through this, there's very little in the way of, you know, different coloured edges and things like that. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on, one, the type of malt that you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. So quite often black IPAs have a little bit of carafa or black malt or something like this in them. That gives you the very dark colour. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Usually the standard wort boil is about 90 minutes, but imperial stouts and things will have very, very long wort boils. Any adjuncts that you put into the beer or any barrel aging that you do will also add into that as well. So yeah, it looks pretty much as you would expect from a black IPA, but going by the haze level on this one, the haze that you'll get in this beer will be due to the wheat and the oak content and the yeast, of course, to a degree also. But in terms of what you'd expect from a black IPA, it is pretty much right on the money. I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this. It looks very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one. The appearance is exactly what we would expect from this style. So yeah. Ooh, that is very, very nice. So what I'm going to say about this one right away, it's got a lovely, juicy, fruity character to it. I get quite a bit of orange out of this, and that would be from the Sabro. But I mean, as I say, when you've got a dark malt base in there, that can really do different things to the hop. Simcoe is quite a popular hop to use in black IPAs normally, and you know, if you think about a West Coast IPA, Simcoe is going to give you quite a lovely, oily, passion fruity character. If you use it in a New England IPA, it's going to give you a lot of lovely, very light, juicy kind of passion fruit. But if you put it in a black IPA, it gives you these big red fruity characters. So it's interesting with this one that I'm really getting a hell of a lot of orange out of this. Yeah, for me, first thing that comes off of this is a big, big, juicy orange. But behind that, you start to smell some more complexities. So, I mean, for thinking normal IPA rather than a black IPA, the first thing that would come to my thought would be Citra. Would be Sabro rather than Citra. Yeah, it's actually like this very kind of sharp orange note that you get out of this. That's really, really interesting. I'd love to, you know, brew a black IPA and just separate it and let it ferment and put, you know, different hops in and just see how some of these different hops behave in the black IPA, because we've got 4 in here, of course. So when you've got 4, it's going to be a little bit difficult to distinguish which hop is doing which, especially, as I said, when we don't know really how these hops behave in a black malt base. So yeah, that's kind of interesting for sure. But yeah, just surprised at how orangey this beer is. You definitely get a wee bit of coconut from the Sabro though, I will say that. But yeah, I don't know whether this will be a 25 ratio hop bill, or exactly what it's going to be, or if one of these will be used as a bittering hop or whatever. I really don't know. It doesn't say. Didn't say on the Untappd page or anything. But yeah, very, very orangey black IPA, this one. That's the first thing that jumps out of this for you. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of floral component behind that, and you can smell some of the big smooth malt base in there. But let's focus on this aroma a wee bit more and just describe it a little bit more in depth for you. So yeah, backbone of the beer, you certainly get a little bit of a slightly toasty bread crust in there. So yeah, a little bit of roasty toasty bread crust. There is a little touch of kind of brown. You get a little bit of a mix of brown. It's almost a bit like a kind of German rye bread and a bit of a wholemeal bread. So yeah, a bit of a roasty toasty bread crust. Lovely smooth brown bready. Yeah, lovely smooth brown bready and bread crusty elements in there. Brown bread, wholemeal bread crust. That's the backbone of the beer. And interestingly, I think the wheat is kind of thickening the bread out and smoothing the bread out. Yeah, but there's also a good little bit, I actually get quite a wee bit of a kind of caramelly element out of this, which is quite interesting. So there's definitely a wee bit of a sweet caramel, bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. Yeah, this goes together. This does go together very, very well. Yeah, sweet caramel, bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, some sweet rye bready notes underneath, bit of wholemeal bread, then the bread crust. Yeah, and the bread crust is quite roasty and toasty. I'd be very curious to know what the malt bill is on this. I'm guessing that some of the bready kind of smoothness in this is down to the oats in the beer as well. But this is quite an interesting one. It actually straddles the line between a New England, what I would call a New England black IPA, and one of the more old school West Coast black IPAs very well. For me, the iconic black IPA is Black Salts and Body Malts from Total. That's a beautiful, beautiful beer. Probably the best black IPA I've ever had. This one certainly shows the sweeter side of that, but it also shows the kind of more modern, if we can call it that, bready side of this style that I've noticed in more recent years. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to be curious to see whether that comes out in the flavour. So yeah. Yeah. Aroma wise, this is very, very interesting for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think the way that this I think the way that this goes together is really, really is the malty side of this beer is really nice. You can smell some of the yeasty notes in there as well, but yeah, I think we've described everything we need to say. A lot of the kind of bready notes are mixing in with the kind of yeasty side of things. On the green component, there's a wee touch of earthiness in there. A lot, but I get quite a bright floral note and quite a grassy note. But with the black malt base, it's a bit hard to tell whether it's leaning more towards the floral and grassy side of things. I've always found that with some of the more New Englandy black IPAs, the grassiness and floral character kind of merge together. But the fruity note in this one, as I say, it really, I don't get much else out of it other than a bright and slightly like marmalade-y orange. It's actually leaning towards the kind of tangy side of orange as well, but you get coconut which will be from the Sabro, of course, and it has got a few kind of red fruity elements like a sweet fig or something like that. So yeah, the way that this whole thing goes together is really nice. It's a very, very interesting black IPA this. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But to be honest, I don't think there's too much else we can say about it. Maybe there's a wee bit of mango in behind. But yeah, and that would make sense. I mean, when you've got Galaxy, Citra and Idaho 7 in this one, that would make sense. Yeah, I do get, there is a wee bit of mango in there. Quite a juicy mango, the big, sharp, slightly tangy orange. And yeah, big tangy orange, bit of juicy mango in there. And then there's a wee bit of a kind of sharper, raisiny, red, fruity kind of thing to this beer. But yeah, I do like how this goes together for sure. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer. But I think it's about time that we try this one. So yeah, this is the Nightweave, a black double IPA at 8% ABV from Alefarm Brewing in Greve, to the sort of southwestish of Copenhagen on Sjælland in Denmark. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's nice. That is nice. Now, I'm going to say, what I was thinking from the aroma, about this straddling the West Coasty, what I was saying about this one straddling the sort of West Coasty, New Englandy border with this style, I'd say that's correct actually. It really does. The further you go into the aftertaste with it, it does get more and more bitter, for sure. And I'd say the West Coasty side, the West Coasty sweetness, is a little bit more obvious in the beginning. But yeah, the later that you go into the flavour with this one, the further you go into the aftertaste, it does show the more New Englandy side. So yeah, interesting first impression actually, yeah. I'm going to say, for me, that's a really nicely done black IPA. Absolutely, big thumbs up to Alefarm. Yeah, I mean, the beers that I have from these guys are always good, but this one just stands out to me a wee bit more, and it's maybe just because of that different hop bill. As I say, Idaho 7, Galaxy and Sabro, I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've had any of those in a black IPA, or at least knowingly. Quite a few. I've had a fair few black IPAs over the last year, but I don't think many of them have really listed the hop bill. I wish they would, but I think it's good for kind of educating yourself about ingredients and stuff, and of course it might encourage more home brewers and so on. But yeah, this is nice. This is very good. Yeah, so let's break down the flavour of the beer for you then and just see how it goes. So let's focus on the middle third of your palate then. So you've got a nice roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crusty backbone. So yeah, you can feel that in the forming the backbone of the beer. I don't know. I don't think it's Carafa that's in this. Could it be a little bit of special B or something like that, or maybe just a straight up black malt? I don't know. It actually feels like the roasty, toasty bread crust that you get out of this one is pretty dry. So I really like that about this beer. Yeah, so roasty, toasty, very dark, dry malt base in this one. On top of that, you get you do get a really nice kind of smooth brown bready character. I don't know if it's quite as rye bready as I thought it was going to be from the aroma. Yeah, I think in the beginning it has quite a sweet rye bready kind of note to it. It has a bit of it has a wee bit of a sweet rye bready note to it. You can feel the wheat on top of that just thickening it out, and that gives you a wee bit more of a kind of a sort of wholemeal bready character. It's like a brown bready note, but yeah, you got a sweet rye bread on top of the well-fired bread crust, a more smooth kind of brown bready thing in there. And as I say, I suspect that's the wheat that's doing that. But then on top of that, you can feel there is a bit of another smooth layer in there, which I suspect is the oaty side of things. But then you start to get a wee bit of sweetness out of it. There's almost like a little circle in the middle of your palate, and underneath it's a kind of toasty. It's got a wee bit. It's a bit of a toasty brown sugar, biscuity. It's hard to distinguish. Wee bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. A wee touch of a toasty brown sugary character for sure. So yeah, nice wee bit of a toasty brown sugary sort of thing. McVitie's digestive biscuit, maybe then a bit of a sweet, oily caramel right in the middle of the palate. So yeah, I like how that goes together in this one. So yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, the further you go into the aftertaste with it, you will feel the kind of roasty, toasty black malts pushing their way out, but the sweetness at the same time, the sweetness lingers there in this one. So it's interesting. I think I said earlier that the further you go into the aftertaste, it becomes a bit more New Englandy, but now that I'm more into the beer, I'm finding it's actually a bit more West Coasty. So yeah, that's interesting, this one. This is really going between the more bready New England and the sweeter and toastier West Coasty side of things. But I think we've said everything we need to about the middle third of the palate in this beer. This is nice. Let's focus on the back third of the palate then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a bready build up there. You can feel the bread crusty notes. The base of the back third of the palate is again a little bit roasty and toasty. Wee bit of that roasty toasty black malt backbone. It's a wee bit more bitter. Remember, more bitter flavours come out the further back on the palate you go. You get the nice thicker bready note there. There's a bit of a sweet rye bready character, and you get a bit more of a kind of wholemealy brown bready note as well. So yeah, roasty toasty black malt, sweeter rye bread, but again quite grainy, and then the more kind of wholemealy sort of thing. But then on top of that, you can feel the slightly more dense, doughy, yeasty kind of side of this beer. And again, it feels a little bit more kind of. It feels a little bit more sort of. How would we say? Yeah, it feels a little bit more like roasty and toasty and things on the outside, but then you can just feel that nice thick and slightly sweet rye bready element out of it. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. That gets a thumbs up from me. And again, on the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavours a little bit taller, but then as you come further forward, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, malty yeasty side of this beer is quite nice for sure, but it gets roastier and toastier the further you go into the aftertaste, but the sweetness lingers there. And yeah, I think in fairness, as I said earlier, some of the kind of brown, the bready side of things that you'd associate with the New England type of this beer comes out too. So yeah, as I say, a bit of a hybrid, Let's focus on the hoppy and fruity side of things. So, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit, you do have a little bit of an earthy kind of character in there for sure, but then as you move further forward, it quite quickly becomes floral, so you can feel a nice little bit of a floral backbone there. I'd be curious to know how they're hopping this one. Are they using some early edition hops to give you that additional IBU, or are they doing mainly late edition and dry hopping? Just remember, West Coast IPAs are the ones that use a lot more early edition hop to give you that big bitterness compared to the New Englands, which rely more on the late edition and dry hopping. West Coast, of course, IPAs have both of those as well. So yeah, I'd be curious to know how they've hopped this one. But yeah, as you move further forward from the back corners of the palate, it does develop a little bit of a slightly piney resinous thing. And there's a bit of a kind of more spicy floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, and round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter, more grassy sort of thing. So yeah. But yeah, the grassy side of things is a wee bit zesty, but quite wet at the same time too. So yeah, I do really like how the green side of this goes together. On the front third of your palate, I don't think we need to say anything more about the green side of things. But yeah, I will say this beer does have a fair wee bit of IBU, but we'll come back to that later. Let's focus on that front third of your palate then. So the borderline between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of that bready build up there again. It's a bit of the black malt comes out too, but the base of that front third of your palate is again quite roasty and toasty. You can feel a wee bit of the roasty toasty bread crust and a bit of the brown bready character, and on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the fruity juicy esters push their way out of the beer. Yeah. And again, as I said in the pardon me, in the aroma with this, it really feels quite orangey. And I don't know if that's the combination hops or if it's the Sabro or what, but it's got this big, almost slightly tangy orangey note to it. Yeah, this is a really interesting beer for sure. So yeah. So I mean, if we focus on the back of that front third of your palate, I do get a wee bit of a grapefruity, passion fruity kind of note, which makes sense when you've got Galaxy and Citra in there. They're both going to give you that. But as you move further forward, you do get a wee bit of a mango-y note out of it. But I do get, it's interesting, there is a wee bit of a grapefruity, passion fruity pungency to it, which I like. But then yeah, as you move further forward, it becomes a juicy mango, and then in the front half of that front third of your palate, it really is very, very orangey. The further you go into the aftertaste, there is a wee bit of a, how would we say, yeah, you certainly do get a little bit of a, yeah, a kind of coconutty vibe in there. So yeah, I do get that out of this one. But yeah, it's this big, bright, almost, I think Mandarin is probably better for it. Mandarin was always the more big kind of zesty orangey character, wasn't it? So yeah, you feel a bit of the coconut and then this big zesty Mandarin-y sort of thing. But yeah, I do like how that goes together as well. There's a wee touch of a red fruity thing further on in this one too. But this is a really, really nice beer actually. The strange thing with this was it wasn't rated that highly. I think it had like a 3.6 on Untappd, and this kind of shows you, I think this is a really, really nice black double IPA. It shows you it kind of shows you both a bit of the West Coast with the roasty toastiness and the sweetness, but also a bit of the more New England modern black IPA, if we can call it that, in between. I like this. I really do like this. That's one of the best Alefarm beers I've had in quite a wee while, in my opinion. So thumbs up to them for that. I think this is awesome. So yeah, try this one. Have a go at it and see what you think. I think the black IPA is almost. It has had a little bit of a mini revival in recent times, but yeah, it's still a little bit of an underappreciated style, I would say, these days. So yeah, give this a go and see what you think. Let's round off the review then with a look at the mouthfeel. But yeah, this gets a thumbs up from me. I like this. So mouthfeel wise then. Yeah. This is I'd say it's mid-bodied. I don't find this one too heavy actually. I would say this is right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a bit of a it's quite clean, but at the same time it's quite wet. A little bit of oily slickness too, which is interesting. But yeah, right in the middle of the spectrum. Mid-bodied, clean, wet. I like it. In terms of the hoppy, bitter side of things, this is quite a high IBU beer, and some of that's coming from the black malt or special beer, whatever, and some of it's also coming from the hoppy side of things. I think this is a 70 IBU beer. I think it's kind of 70, 75 IBUs. Could be wrong on that, and remember, my IBU count is my weakest point of beer reviewing, so always take those with a pinch of salt. But yeah, I'd say yeah, 70 IBUs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's that. The malt base has a bit of roasty toastiness to it, a bit of smoothness, and a wee bit of sweetness. The fruity side of this beer, as we say, it leans towards that orangey citrusy side of thing, but there is a wee bit of a tropical character in there as well. But overall, I think this beer is very, very nice, and like I said, it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about this one. This is the Nightweave, a black double IPA, double black IPA, whatever we're going to call it, from Alefarm Brewing in Greve to the southwest of Copenhagen in Denmark. Try this, honestly. I've really enjoyed this. It really shows you a little bit of the old school West Coast black double IPA, and a bit more of the more modern kind of bready New Englandy sort of one as well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my take on this one. Let me know your own thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Alefarm Brewing. Check out my social media, check out their social media, and I will see you guys on the next one. Slange, skull, cheers, Nightweave, 8% black double IPA from Alefarm in Greve, Sjælland, Denmark. Skål.